Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, and today I'll be reading a multi-character listener by me. So let's get into it. Cyno. Cyno is usually known for being able to keep his own emotions in control and his own preferences aside whenever making judgments. However, that didn't seem to be the case today, because he was a raging tornado of emotions and you had no idea why. So when he slammed the door shut and came to yell at you, it was safe to say you were more than surprised about it. Sino, just tell me what's wrong. Can you just be more honest about this? Honest? Why are you acting like you don't understand? You're so audacious. You mistreat my people and make fun of their culture, and yet you want me to be on your side? He says, anger lacing his voice. You didn't know what you'd done, honestly. Maybe it was something you had done by accident, but none of it would warrant such hate. You had no idea if this was a mistake or not, but then... I hate people like you. I loathe them, he said. And that made you flinch. Chills running up your spine, from the way he said it, was so much... How do you even begin to describe this? If there was an opposite to the word love, then this would be it. After that, you told him you would no longer stand for this, and you were packing, going home. If he was not going to explain, then you no longer wanted to hear. Child. Child only said that because he knew you were in danger. The Fatui would not stand for him having a partner, and you were constantly going to be a target of multiple organizations at once. Not to mention, he knew you'd be uncomfortable with the way things are and how his life was. So that's why he said I hate you. That's why he left you in tears as you sobbed and cried, begging for him to explain, and you refused multiple times. He hoped that if you didn't understand now, you would understand later. But you couldn't afford to explain, because right now, he had to leave, only for your own safety. He doesn't care if you stay with him. As long as you're safe, then that's what matters most. Albedo. Albedo wasn't a hateful person, and he was not one to anger easily either. He was an extremely patient one, and that's kind of the thing that you loved about him. But it seemed like it was not something you should take for granted, especially not when you were in a whole shelf of potions that you had taken years to actually manage to do. You stood there, staring at the disaster before Albedo arrived, and once he did, he just took one look at it, then sighed deeply, as if trying to just hide all his frustration. And then, during one of his mutterings, he heard, I hate how misty she is, he said, and it hurts you. There's something that he hates about you, and to be honest, you hated it too, but trying to be so angry and say it out loud. That if it was someone else, maybe you would have been more lenient. It was only because he gave you so many warnings. Though you do take the blame for it, as much as you're hurt. So you don't comment, acting like you didn't hear it, and hoping that you can make up for it in the future. Venti. Venti was one of the kindest and gentlest souls to ever exist. So you never thought that you would hear the word hate on his tongue. But there it was. You worked with Celestia. You weren't, well, a god per se, but you were not an archon either. You just knew some things, somehow, without being a deity. And being immortal yourself, and knowing many secrets that would have helped Venti's nation. Along with your loyalty to Celestia, it was a sensitive topic. He never even knew. He'd never told him, because he knew of his hatred towards them. And honestly, he didn't like their actions very much, but there wasn't much that you could do. He just agreed to them because there wasn't any other option. You weren't a masochist. But apparently, once Venti figured it out, he was beyond angry, telling you that he hated you and your kind, and everyone who agreed with them. You couldn't help but stare at him, completely in awe of how brave he was. You knew that this would happen. It was meant to, and there was no reason to delay it as far as you have. But you were happy with the time you spent with him. He knew you caused him suffering and pain, and you couldn't blame him for any hatred he had. Scaramouche. It was all in a fit of anger and pain, to say the least. The gnosis that he had tried to use to become an archon, it rejected him, and he stared down at it in horror. But just right down, a few steps away from him, you were thankful, relieved, and grateful. He couldn't believe how happy you were that it didn't work. How could you be so happy when he failed? How could you be so happy when he was devastated like that? He stared at you, crying as pain coursed through his body from the process of trying to absorb it. He then told you that he hated you, but he didn't understand why you'd want something like that for him. He doesn't understand, but he would never understand what he wants. So he told you to get away from him, because he doesn't want to see you again. You do, even though it's painful, and it makes your heart ache and hurt more than anything else in the world. And that's why, when Scaramouche wakes up and cries about you being gone, and tries to get you back, you know it's not time. He has to heal. He has to know what he wants first before he gets back to you. Because the two of you would be in so much pain to continue, and it wasn't safe for you to do so when both of you were like this. Tighnari. Tighnari is usually very calm, and he knows not to let himself assume things he shouldn't. But when he figured out you were a Fatui, and not only that, you worked on the Dottore from all people, the one who experimented on Kole, one of his most important people. She was like a younger sister to him. So the fact that you worked with someone as well at that, and came here to just observe his work, and somehow decided that it was bad, after all the time he spent experimenting with humans and the like. Oh, it kind of pained him, and it struck a chord. It doesn't matter that you regretted it now. What matters is that you agreed to do it all this time. And that's why he told you that he hates you, and that he wants you nowhere near him, or Kole, because people like you deserve to be alone, locked up. And you should be thankful that you're not in jail, he says, before slamming the door on you, locking you out, as Kole cries in his arms, thanking him for making you get away.